Imagine waking up one morning, checking your phone, and seeing that something you owned, something the entire world was talking about just 2 months ago, had lost nearly half its value overnight. That is exactly what happened to silver investors in 2026. And if you have never heard about silver investing before, or you have no idea why any of this should matter to you, stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly what happened, why it happened, and most importantly, where this metal is likely heading next. No complicated finance words, no confusing charts, just plain, simple explanations. Let's get into it. Let's go back to January 29th, 2026. Silver hit an all-time high of $121 per ounce. Think about what that means for a second. People who had bought silver just 1 year earlier at under $30 were sitting on gains of over 300%. The metal was on fire. Financial news channels could not stop covering it. Social media was flooded with people predicting silver at $200, $300, maybe even higher. It genuinely felt like nothing could stop it. And then, almost overnight, it all came crashing down. Today, March 28, 2026, silver is sitting at $70.50 per ounce. That is a drop of over 42% in less than 60 days. So what on earth happened? And more importantly, is this the end of the silver story, or just a pause before the next massive move upward? Let's break it all down from the very beginning, starting with why silver exploded in the first place, because the crash only truly makes sense once you understand the rally. Silver did not just randomly shoot up to $121. There were real powerful reasons behind it. The world is using more silver than it is actually pulling out of the ground. Think of it like a bathtub with the tap barely running but the drain wide open. The water level keeps going down. When something becomes scarcer, it becomes more expensive. That is basic economics. And silver has been in this exact situation for 6 consecutive years now. 6 years where global demand has outpaced global supply, draining the world's available stockpiles year after year after year. And here is something most beginners do not realize. Silver is not just a shiny metal people wear around their necks. It is one of the most industrially important materials on the planet right now. Every solar panel you see on a rooftop contains silver. Every electric vehicle rolling off a production line has silver wired inside it. Every AI data center processing your online searches, your streaming recommendations, your AI assistants, silver is in there too. Roughly 60% of all silver consumed every single year goes directly into industrial use. The world's hunger for clean energy and advanced technology is essentially a hunger for silver. That industrial demand was turbocharging the price all through 2025 and into early 2026. So with all of that going for it, why did it crash so hard and so fast? Here is where things get really interesting. In late February 2026, a major geopolitical conflict escalated involving Iran. Now I know that sounds like something far removed from a silver price, but here is the connection. When there is serious tension between countries, investors around the world tend to rush toward the US dollar because it is seen as the safest place to park money during uncertain times. And here is the thing about silver that most beginners never get taught. Silver and the US dollar almost always move in opposite directions. When the dollar gets stronger, silver gets cheaper. It works like a seesaw. One side goes up, the other comes down. So while the conflict created a tiny bit of demand for precious metals as a safe haven, the much bigger effect was a surging dollar. And that dollar surge hit silver like a freight train. At the same time, hopes that interest rates would come down soon got pushed further into the future. The central bank held rates steady at its March meeting. When interest rates stay high, things like savings accounts and government bonds pay investors a decent guaranteed return. So people ask themselves a very simple question. Why would I hold silver, which pays me nothing and can swing wildly in value, when I can earn a safe return somewhere else? The honest answer is they would not. And so money started flowing out of silver and into those interest-bearing alternatives. That was the second punch. So you had a 1-2 combination land right on silver's jaw. A stronger dollar from geopolitical fear, and delayed rate cuts removing a key reason to hold precious metals. The result was a brutal 42% drop from the all-time high in under 2 months. For anyone who bought near the January peak, this has been genuinely painful to watch. But here is what the data is telling us about what comes next. And this is the part you really want to pay attention to. The things that caused the crash are temporary. A geopolitical conflict eventually stabilizes. Interest rates eventually come down. The dollar eventually weakens. These are short-term forces. But the things that caused the original massive rally, the 6-year supply deficit, the industrial demand from solar panels and electric vehicles and AI infrastructure, the steady depletion of above-ground silver stockpiles, those are structural forces. They do not disappear because of a conflict overseas or a central bank decision. If anything, every single day that passes without major new silver mines coming online makes the long-term supply picture even tighter. The price forecasts circulating in the market for the remainder of 2026 show a wide range, from around $49 on the very cautious end all the way up to $300 on the most aggressive end. That enormous spread tells you something important. Nobody truly knows where silver lands in the short term. What most serious market observers agree on, however, is that somewhere in the $95 to $106 range by year-end is a reasonable expectation if the macro environment cooperates. A return toward the $100 level looks achievable if the dollar softens and rate cuts begin later in the year as widely expected. There are also technical signals worth understanding. As long as silver holds above the $30 to $50 range on any further pullback, the bigger picture bull market thesis remains intact. Some near-term models suggest silver could dip a little further, might possibly toward $65, before finding a floor and beginning to recover. But the broader trend, driven by those structural fundamentals, has not reversed. Here is the honest truth that every beginner deserves to hear. Nobody can tell you with certainty what silver will do next week or next month. Anyone who claims otherwise is simply guessing. What the data clearly shows is that the fundamental reasons silver surged are still in place. The world still needs silver for the energy transition, mines are still not producing enough to satisfy demand, and rate cuts are still expected before the end of 2026, which historically has been very good for precious metals. What you are watching right now is a metal that went parabolic, got ahead of itself, and is now cooling off and digesting those enormous gains. Whether $70 turns out to be the bottom, or whether we see $65 or even slightly lower before the recovery builds, is impossible to know for certain. But if you are thinking long-term, if you believe in the story of solar energy, electric vehicles, and the technology revolution, then the question is not really whether silver goes higher over the next few years. The real question is whether you have the patience and the stomach to hold through the volatility while it gets there. That is the full silver story as of today, March 28, 2026, from an all-time high of $121 down to $70 in under 60 days. Not because the fundamental story changed, but because the short-term macro environment shifted against it temporarily. The supply deficit is still real, the industrial demand is still accelerating, and the pressure building under this market has not gone away. If this video gave you a clearer picture of what is happening in silver right now, do me a favor and hit that like button. It helps this channel reach more people who need to hear this. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you think silver is heading back to $100 before the end of 2026? Or do you think the bull market is finished? I read every single comment. Subscribe if you want to stay updated as this silver story keeps developing. See you in the next one.